Carole Ann understands Medicare,
Medi-Cal,
SSI,
SSD, Social Security Disability Income,
SSI, insurance contracts,
yes,
advanced health care directives.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Very important.
So these are the areas that she has expertise in. But it's difficult to find someone who is not insurance licensed who has these kinds of expertise. Relevant licenses, there are none, so we don't look there. You're not a legal expert, although you lecture attorneys.
I have.
And
attend their conferences. That I love to go to.
And then in a business relationship, when you agree to work with someone, you agree to a fiduciary relationship.
Their best interest.
Okay? Again, it's that best interest versus suitability. I gave a talk 2 weeks ago up in Reno, Nevada, and apparently I offended a broker up there because I mentioned suitability versus best interest. And he came back to the person who sponsored this thing and said, why did you bring somebody from out of state here to tell that I don't have my client's best interest at heart? What is he confusing?
Legal definition versus
exactly. Brokers do not have the legal standard of the best interest. That does not mean that they don't have their quote-unquote best interest at heart, but the hard part is, how do you know? You know, there's a sign on the elevator coming up the steps, and did you see that it has a Medicare Advantage on the wall there on the elevator? When you go back down, it takes forever to get down. You can read the whole thing. But the presenter is, which I just found out from Carole Ann, if anyone purchased that Advantage Healthcare program, that presenter receives $500 per person, plus if they renew for the next 5 years, $250 a year. And it's just not disclosed up front. You wouldn't know that unless somebody were to tell you. And so that's why we like to have that best interest fiduciary. So how do you charge, Carole Ann?
A flat fee base.
A flat fee. And what kind of flat fee do you charge?
Usually consultations between $2 to $250, depending on circumstances.
So usually...
But that's for 1 hour, well, basically 2 hours or whatever.
2 hours plus?
2 hours plus, and it's usually like 3 or 4.
So usually what happens is that there's a crisis within the family.
Yeah, and those take longer.
And so does just the person who has the crisis come in?
Well, if they're in the crisis, probably they're in the nursing home or in hospital, so either their spouse or relatives will be coming in.
So, but usually a lot of times it's the entire family.
A lot of times.
Okay, and it's trying to figure out whether or not what medical benefits the person will qualify for.
Right, well, what can they do, basically, because most of the time your loved one is in the hospital and you've been told, well, they're not going to be able to go home. So now you have the panic button. What are we going to do? What can we do? And I don't have money to pay for nursing home care. So hopefully someone has referred them to me, and I can sit down with the family and look at their whole picture, understand what the health care issues are, and then evaluate their financial picture and tell them what their options are.
Yeah, so she'll review the insurance policy. She'll review the SSI, see what qualifications are under there. She'll review Medicare. So it's literally the entire picture. So for $250, you get 2 hours plus, and then you bring the entire family in?
Yeah, just tell me how many chairs we need so I can gather them out of the garage.
So is it unusual for it to go 3 to 5 hours?
Oh, I've had it go that long, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Very easy.
And then once they need to do something, then you quote a fee as to what they need to have done?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Depends on what they have to do and how involved it might be. If it's simple, it's going to be less because it's not going to take me as many hours to complete forms.
So your guesstimation as to what they need is going to be based on the number of hours that you have to put in?
Right, and then it's usually cut off for the hours. It always takes more hours than I feel like I comfortably can charge because I'm not going to take you to the cleaners. I just can't do that.
You're not going to take these people to the cleaners?
No, sorry.
We're going to start on the orange page. What is long-term care?
Is it orange? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit, Pete, because I'm weak. Okay. What is long-term care? Well, we have it actually in our life today, in a sense, because long-term care is the ability to perform our activities of daily living.
And how is it usually stated?
ADLs.
Yeah.
Activities of daily living will be referred to as ADLs. So what are ADLs? They're bathing, dressing, toileting, continence, transferring from bed to chair, ambulating, walking around, or impairment of a cognitive ability, and an inability to not be able to do your task without assistance.
So really, let's say if we had an insurance contract, do they go through the ADLs?
They should have at least 2 ADLs covered in that in order to trigger the policy.
So does somebody come around and say, okay, show me that you can bathe?
Well, someone should evaluate, and of course you're going to have a physician, and if you're having home care, you're going to have a case manager checking to see what your ability is and what kind of services you need at home. Your doctor, your doctor is going to have a care plan. Otherwise, you're basically going to be custodial care. Somewhere in the component of your care, you have a physician or his nurse, practitioner, giving you a care plan. So there has to be a physician or a medical advisor to know what you need. Otherwise, it's very custodial in your daily life.
So if you're coming out of a hospital, do you all of a sudden go on long-term care, or when you're in a hospital, or do you go in a nursing home? I'm trying to get what's the difference between acute care and custodial care?
Okay, acute care basically that's your hospital setting. That's the very most intense level of care that you require. After that, we're going to maybe transition into, sometimes they want to call it rehab. To me, when you're in rehab, you're actually using your Medicare skilled nursing level of care days, which you have 100 under Medicare rules per benefit period. So if you've gone from the hospital to the nursing home under rehab, you're using your Medicare days.
And did they talk about that in the ADLs?
They won't references like ADLs in that reference. They're just going to use basically a level of care that's higher than ADLs.
Okay, that's in
custodial. Acute is hospital. Rehabilitation is where you're needing assistance for your care, your health, or monitoring a condition, because if you weren't in that setting of rehab, then you're going to be in the hospital.
So we got acute, rehabilitation, and then custodial.
Correct.
And in the custodial area, that's where we talk about ADLs.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, they're going to probably say some activities of daily living ADLs when you're in the rehabilitation too, because they're basically looking to see if you're able to function without having your task without having assistance. That's what they're looking at. How strong are you getting? One of the things you want to be aware of is that you don't want to hear the words, and you will, you've plateaued. That's not in the game anymore. You can't do that. It's really what is your highest functioning level is what Medicare and the Department of Health Services, Human Health Services, they all say, what is your ability to function to the highest degree? So you're never probably going to get to where you were before, but it's to get you to that high as you can level.
So let's say you've been declared you have trouble bathing, and you have an insurance policy. Does the person just call up their long-term care insurance company and say, hey, I have trouble bathing?
Well, I hope they have somebody to call.
Okay.
Number one. And if they did, they're probably going to get a hold of the case manager in that company, and she will ask you lots of questions and evaluate it, probably come out and see you, and then they'll determine whether the policy covers or not. Probably have to have 2 triggers of and triggers meaning 2 ADLs that you cannot do, and normally you would have that.
Genworth is probably one of the largest providers of long-term care insurance and one of the strongest companies, and we'll talk a little bit more about that.
And since the regulations say 2, I'm wondering how are they putting 1 unless it's a way to get a sale.
But these ADLs are used in the regulatory language, board and cares use them, hospice folks use them, and they talk about ADLs. If somebody is suffering from an ADL, do they usually are forthcoming and say, hey, you know, I'm having a little trouble bathing today, I need some help?
No.
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 So the person who needs to understand this is whom? Who?
Your representative. Yourself and your representative.
Yeah.
Your health care, you have a power of attorney under health care. Your representative agent should know these requirements because they're the ones that's going to help you get them. Because if you're sick, you probably don't feel like messing with the system.
Yeah. And most of what I talk to agents and personal representatives, they don't know what ADLs are. Okay? And so you want to get them up to speed and understand it. So if you have an insurance policy, by the way, most individual policies, 99% of them never mature. What does that mean? They drop them or never get used. So only 1% of long-term care policies are ever used. Why do you think that is, Carole Ann?
Probably because the relative or their agent doesn't know they have one. I would say that was a big issue. Or the person, if they happen to have a cognitive impairment, doesn't remember they have a policy. So, and the company doesn't know, even if it will pay, they don't know you're sick because they're not going to call you up and say, well, how are you feeling today? They're not going to do that.
And there's also, the issue is that how few of us actually need it, okay? Policies are really difficult to read and to understand.
So you want to go back and look at the definitions.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's what I do first before I evaluate a policy. I'm going to go to the definitions of that contract.
And you have to go to the definitions of that contract. And you can't go to the dictionary to see the definition. You've got to understand because they'll spell out what they mean with the terms.
Right.
And they're not what you would normally think of as intuitive what it means. We all want to maintain our independence, okay? We do. So, but having any of these issues, we need assistance with that independence. And so the question becomes, whom is going to provide that? You want to take a look at page 2? Look at the next page, page 2.
Okay.
Evolution.
Evolution of long-term care habitat. What do I mean? Okay, where are we going to start long-term care? Well, we really begin long-term care in childhood. Because what do we have? We're born, and we have our parents helping us with our ADLs.
The circle of life, huh?
Yep, it is the circle of life. And when we get into adulthood, and we have our partners at home, we're doing our activities like we all are doing today, and we're doing our own ADLs. And as we go older into our encore years, we're either living at home or in assisted living, board and care, and having help from staff in these homes.
So self-insure is literally saying, hey, I've got a $5 million estate. What should we use if we had to calculate on average what someone may need in long-term care? 3 years?
Well, the California Partnership goes only up to 5 years, so that would be the standard that I would say the state has, 5 years.
So 3 to 5 years.
Up to, and you can buy them for lifetime.
Okay, but I'm doing it for self-insured.
Okay, 3 to 5 years. Well, I would say let's do 5.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because of the Medi-Cal rules. So I would go 5.
Okay. So what's the cost of providing for a caregiver today? Yeah, but I would say, you know, as a rule of thumb, okay, and this is just a rule of thumb, everybody's situation is a little different, but I would say somewhere between 50 to 70,000 a year. So let's say I have a $1 million estate, 1 million. Okay, we said 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. So let's pick out the big number. So 5 times 7 is what? So that's 350,000 minus the 1 million. So how much would we have left? 650. I think this is the first calculation you kind of have to do. Can you live with this number? Some people can, some people can't. Okay? Don't look at this number. It's going to cost you $350,000 because you'll run to the hills. Okay? Hey, I still have $650,000 left that goes to my kids to take care of me. The other thing when you think of the $70,000 is that usually the person will cook your meals for you, will have the house cleaned for you as well. You're not going to go out to dinner. You're not going to go out to the cruise. You're not going to be spending a lot of resources outside because you're in long-term care. It's more difficult for you, especially...
And that's if you're at home.
Yeah. Exactly. So do this analysis first and figure, you know, can I live with this number? Can I self-insure? That's what we're talking about here. If you can't live with this number...
Die before you need it.
Die before you need it, one. Or there's some other alternatives like purchasing insurance. But let's take a look at what's the next thing. Die before you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Or, God forbid, live with your children. Because that usually, you know, it makes it very hard for the family. A lot of times the little children. If there are no grandchildren, well, maybe it's a little bit easier for adults to take care of you, that kind of thing.
And the reason why I mention it, please, discuss it. You know? I mean, it's just a high... One, and the other thing, besides just whether or not you're willing and, you know, and you have the facilities, I mean, what we did in our place is we want to make sure that there was a bathroom separate, there was an entrance separate, etc. So you want to keep somebody as independent as possible. You know, I mean, it's hard enough living with somebody else that you're not familiar with for the last 20 or 30 years. But the other thing is that if you have a family member involved, are you going to pay them?
And if you're going to pay them, then I suggest you put it, not only how much, but I suggest you put it in a contract. Because at some level, maybe you will not be able to pay them and you may be wanting to look at Medi-Cal to help pay for nursing home care.
Or will everybody else, did everybody else in the family appreciate, Joan, what you did for your husband and how sick? Did they come over?
Yeah.
They did?
Yes.
Then that's rare and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I see is that the rest of the family doesn't understand how difficult it is to care for another individual. In fact, the national statistic is that caregivers die before the person that they're caring for.
40%.
It's so stressful.
40%.
Yeah, it's huge. So if you want to pay and you want to use a family member, nothing wrong with that. Just discuss it. And there's 2 points of view. She said, basically, I'll never live with my kids. And the other
I think they need their independence.
Yes, and that's
true. It's hard enough in this day and age.
Yes, exactly. Okay. How many individuals want to die at home and live at their home forever and a day?
We all do.
Really? See, what I find is that in regular practice now, is that sometimes the home becomes a prison. And what I mean by that is the only person that person is talking to is the caregivers. The caregiver doesn't take them out. And we are social animals. We love to gossip about other people. We love to complain about things. And if you're just living at home, who are you going to complain about?
Your soul.
But you can require the caregivers to drive them out.
But most don't.
Well, that's part of it.
They stay almost like, you know, be flexible is, I guess, what I'm saying. If you can still get out and go here and go there, I don't think there's any problem. But once you become maybe on long-term care and have a disability,
a lot of people are isolated. There's nobody around. They're not in contact with them. They're isolated. You have an unusual situation.
Yeah, you don't want to be isolated. We're social animals. And so I'll bring people to, you know, if I have a caregiving situation, I'll make sure that caregiver goes to the senior center and has a kind of a community lunch. The food is not that great. I don't care. Let them complain about the food, but I want them to interact with some other people because you have to have that interaction. And so, again, this is something that you want to discuss with whom you have chosen as your agent and say, hey, if I'm, you know, yeah, I'd like to stay at home, but maybe under some circumstances, it may not be the best. Okay, great. Transfer costs to insurance company, we talked about that. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit. And the last, apply for government benefits, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Let's go to the insurance. What does indemnity mean?
Indemnity policy is usually one that's going to pay a flat dollar amount, say like $50 a day or $100 a day. But normally indemnity policies aren't going to make you whole. And thinking of being whole, that they're going to pay everything. And there is not one insurance policy that's really going to pay everything. Because there's always going to be something that still has to be
For those who have a policy, do you know your dollar amount?
Yeah, but I can't remember it.
Do you remember it? Anybody remember it? What is it?
$2,884 a month.
2,000, not a per day?
No, per month.
Is it
for home care?
For home care, so they have it on a per month, huh?
But that's home care.
Yeah.
Did you say?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have the policy here if you want to look at the other.
Okay. Anybody else has a dollar per day?
130.
130?
Okay, so then what might happen with your situation, $130 a day is not going to pay the entire nursing home cost. So what are you going to do? You think, well, I can't afford it, but you have to calculate the fact that you're going to have your own income, your pension, your Social Security, the payment of the policy, and then if your level of care is high, it's going to cost more than those funds will allow, and you would then need to apply for Medi-Cal. And can be done. So just so you understand that, because some people think, well, I've got all this income, but I can't qualify, but that's not true. Right, because the level of care in residential is lower.
Okay.
Because it's not full-time and you're not having the...
Like adult daycare?
Adult daycare is totally different.
Different.
It's like coming to the senior center would be similar to it, but it's a specific...
Is this negotiable?
No, I don't think so, Pete.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can negotiate, I want $100.
Oh, yeah, in that respect, yeah, but his particular policy.
$150 a day. It's negotiable as to the dollar amount. The higher the dollar amount, the higher your premium is going to be, right?
But it's not negotiable for this gentleman's policy.
No.
Okay, that's what okay.
Once you have signed the contract, that's
so
it.
Make that clear.
You know, or you have to sign a new contract. But your dollar flat amount is negotiable. Is it negotiable when this kicks in?
It's contract terminology. It's when, do you have a waiting period?
Exactly. So there's a deductible. So would a premium be higher, let's say, if it kicked in 90 days later after you've been declared based on ADLs qualified?
Yeah, it's going to be cheaper for a 30-day or 60-day or a 90-day. And 90-day you might want to consider because you always have that 100 days of Medicare possibility. As long as it's Medicare level of care, because they have a specific level, and it doesn't always include the custodial element.
So the question becomes, when does yours kick in? Anybody who has an insurance policy, do you know when you got 90 days? Don't know?
No, I don't have it.
Don't have it.
I can't remember.
60 days.
What is it?
60 days.
60 days. Did you ask them, or did the agent offer to say, let me give you a quote, what 90 days would be?
No, they just gave me this policy.
Okay. A good agent will work with you and give you a variety of different
Yeah, he
quotes.
should have been told at least so he could have a choice.
Yeah, and usually the 90-day is where the major price break is. Okay? These things are sold on commission. And so the higher your premium is, the more dollars they make. Your role is to ask a lot of questions. And so you ask, okay, what about a 90-day? What if I pay the first year myself and I just really want it to be a catastrophic? If I'm in there for the next 10 years, what's my cost? Does it have a cost of living increase? You know, $130 today is not going to be the same as 10 years from now. So these are just some of the, when you get looking at an indemnity policy, some of the questions to ask. We'll get a little bit more into actually the insurance contract. What is a specific disease?
Specific disease policies are heart attack, cancer, Aflac, quack, quack, quack. That's where you get the specific disease.
Okay? Don't.
It's a
Just
waste
say
of money.
no.
Yeah, it's a waste of
Okay?
money.
Aflac is probably the most profitable insurance company
If
there
you're
is
the
in-
agent, too,
Yeah,
you know.
in the United States. And they sell more specific disease policies than any other insurance company. And they have such a cute duck.
What did you say Aflac stood for?
They said they sell a lot of specific disease.
Right, but Aflac is most profitable.
Is
Yeah.
one of the most profitable companies because you're betting on with them. Okay, if you die of cancer, they cover you. But it's too bad. We put down you died of a heart attack. You know, you don't get covered. So it's kind of like buying accidental insurance. Don't do it. You know, what you want to have covered is if you die, you die. You don't want to know whether or not whether it was by accident or specific disease.
Yeah. And don't buy those $1,000 policies
That
and
the
pay on
banks
that the
offer.
banks give you. I mean, that's a
worthless.
waste.
They make a fortune on those.
Don't do that.
Please
Cancel
don't.
it if you have it.
What else will go? Oh, if you wanted to invest in a company, Aflac is a great company to invest in.
Don't buy it.
Don't buy their insurance, but
Invest.
what is group or individual health insurance policies?
Well, group policy is through an association, either a fraternal association or your employer. And usually the policies can be cheaper, but what you want to know in the beginning is, can you take it with you if you change the fraternal organization or your employment? So you don't want to have it just pay all these premiums and have coverage and then move on and you don't have a policy. So you want to make sure that you can keep the policy and it follows you.
AARP sells a ton of insurance. They're not necessarily the best buy. In fact, sometimes they're one of the worst. Okay? So don't, just because it's a group plan, look into the plan itself. PERS is actually pretty good if anybody's on the PERS program.
Yeah, it is. But one thing, too, while we have PERS on the subject matter here, if you are in PERS anyway, you want to be sure you get their power of attorney. They have their own specific power of attorney. So if you want anybody to be able to access anything at PERS, you need to have their power of attorney.
Okay.
A normal one won't work.
Okay, since we're on that, let's go one more step. The durable power of attorney for healthcare and the Advanced Healthcare Directive, these documents, when you get to Medi-Cal, what are some of the issues here that you want to make sure of? The representative?
Well, with the durable power of attorney, your durable power of attorney for healthcare, you do want to have the terminology of representative, because all of the regulations are indicating the word representative. And there are some funny people out there. If they don't see a specific word, then they're not going to honor it. So all I would do would say representative agent, and you got it covered. Because it's real important to be able to have the ability to activate that power. You also want to have language in those powers of attorney to do Medi-Cal planning. Think a little bit beyond the box. Don't go to the stationery store and buy one of those power of attorneys in Staples or Office Depot, because it's not going to cut the mustard. You're going to have to fine-tune it.
So is that specifically Medi-Cal planning when you're talking about gifting rules?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Big issue. You're allowing your agent to make gifts of your money.
But if you want your agent to have a gift, you better make sure it's in that document, because otherwise it's not self-fulfilling. It's what is that, Pete?
You can't.
Your agent can't gift to himself, so you have to actually have terminology that it's possible if that came up.
Let's say you name one of your sons. You have 3 kids, and you want to do some gifting. Well, that one of your sons is your
agent representative,
fiduciary. They cannot make a gift to themselves unless it's specifically stated in the document.
Right. Okay. So he's left out. And if he does or she does, then they violated regulations.
Okay. Most of the terminology in these documents use the word agent.
But the law says representative.
Educated me that they should use representative as well. I wouldn't make a special trip to an attorney, but next time you update your plan, you may want to use in these 2 documents the word representative.
And in your trust too, to keep it all consistent.
Okay. Medicap or HMO, no long-term care coverage. Are we going to go through that a little later, or do you want to go through it now?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Medigap, basically, Medicare supplements. AARP sells them. Who else sells Medigap policies? Not Secure Horizon.
Should we talk about Medicare first? If we're going to talk about Medigap?
Okay, Medicare.
What does Medicare cover? Does Medicare cover long-term care?
Medicare will never cover long-term care until our regulations change, and that's one of the things that should change in the Medicare system. But Medicare allows, first of all, go back a step, we have benefit periods. And benefit periods come under Part A of Medicare. And we have Part B, which is your doctors. You have Part C, which is your HMO Medicare Advantage plan. And you have Part D, which is your prescription drug plan. So Medicare has 4 components, basically. And under Medicare Part A, that's your hospitalization and your nursing home coverage. And let me see if I've got any of those numbers in here. He threw me off here. Although I'll add it. Under Medicare hospitalization, you probably have a hospital deductible now about $1,100, give or take a few dollars in there. Most people who have Part A benefits under Medicare have received their Medicare Part A through their own work earnings. So that's why you don't have a premium. If you didn't have enough work earnings to qualify for Part A, you can purchase it, and it's a good buy. It sounds expensive, but it is a good buy. Because
but you have to be 65 years and older in order to purchase it.
Unless you are under Social Security disability, and then it triggers after 2 years. Okay.
What is Part B?
Part B is the doctors, the lab work, anything that's not in the hospital, because actually hospitalization, Part B doctors and the lab is covered under Part B. The only thing under hospitalization is that Part A.
And what
so
is
any
C?
of the doctors that see you in the hospital are billing under Part B.
And what is C?
C is your HMO Medicare Advantage plan, where they throw everything in the one pot. And under an HMO, you're getting your Medicare Part A, you're getting your Medicare Part B, and They are the Part C, and then you're probably getting the drug coverage as well.
So the HMO gets paid by the government whether or not you go in or not go in?
Absolutely. Every month, whether you use the system or not, they're getting paid their monthly fee. Sometimes it's, I don't know what it is now, but it used to be $685 per individual that's enrolled in the plan.
And what is D?
D is your prescription drug plan, which I think stinks, but anyway, they don't listen to me. Part
It
D.
is so confusing.
Oh, it is.
You know, the donut hole, you know, you could spend so much and then you go into the donut hole, then you have to cover it yourself, and then you come out of the donut hole, and what a mess. Nobody understands it.
Well, hopefully they'll close the donut hole somewhere before
Yeah.
everybody gets too sick and can't
Okay.
afford it.